Some people see a seventh-round running back and treat it like a tiny footnote. I see it like a warning shot. In Foxborough, a roster spot is never handed out as a favor. It is earned. Today, the backfield battle gets a whole lot tougher. A first-round tackle might be turning into a future cornerstone. A big-name linebacker suddenly enters the radar. And a target from Chicago could give Drake Maye another weapon defenses hate dealing with. Hit that like button because around here we are not slowing down. And I want to start with the spot a lot of people are brushing off way too easily. Seventh-round running back. To me, Jam Miller is not walking in as some late draft decoration. He is walking in as a direct threat to anybody who thought that roster spot was basically protected. Chad Graff of The Athletic put it right on the table when he projected that Miller could take the RB3 job away from Terrell Jennings, and that read hits harder because the Patriots just used a second-round pick on Travion Henderson last year. So why go back to the backfield again? Because serious teams do not wait for depth to break and then act surprised. Ramondre Stevenson is still the top guy in the room. Henderson is an impact piece. But the bottom of this roster has to be settled through competition, through camp, through preseason. Through the rep, nobody turns into a highlight clip. Miller brings straight-line speed, and that changes the whole tone of this battle. You do not hide that kind of burst just because the name came late in the draft. Now, I am not going to talk about Miller like he is already a finished product. The report on him brings up the uncomfortable part. Pass protection and receiving still need work, and with Josh McDaniels, that matters a lot. A third running back in New England cannot just be a guy who looks good in the open field. He has to protect the quarterback, recognize blitzes, help on third down, and avoid turning into a free lane for a defender to crush Drake Maye. That is the filter, and it is a serious one. But that is exactly why this battle becomes so interesting. Jennings has experience, he knows the building, he has been on the roster. But true impact? He still has to prove it, partly because the opportunities have been limited and the room was crowded, with Antonio Gibson holding the RB3 role and helping in the return game. Now, with Miller arriving and Lan Larison also trying to push his way back onto the radar after impressing before his injury last offseason, nobody can walk into July thinking the badge protects anything. The message to Jennings is tough and completely fair. Run, block, catch, produce, or somebody else takes your job. And the message to Miller is even clearer. Speed gets attention, but trust is what keeps you in Foxborough. If he shows quick growth in the areas McDaniels values most, this seventh-round pick can stop being a small detail and start becoming a real problem for a veteran. Now the conversation gets even hotter because Caleb Lomu is not just another body on the offensive line. The Patriots traded with the Buffalo Bills, moved from pick 31 to pick 28, gave up pick 125 too, and did something they had not done since 2012. They traded up in the first round. To me, that kind of move says something loud inside the building. You do not do that for no reason. You do it because you saw value, because you felt the player should not still be there, and because you decided to strike before another team ripped that piece out of your hands. And Lomu's numbers are not just decoration. At Utah, he started on the left side for the last 2 seasons, allowed only 2 sacks in 1,595 snaps. And in 2025, he did not allow a single sack. A 2% pressure rate is not some throwaway detail either. Among college tackles taken in the first round, he had the lowest career pressure rate allowed. That is production. That is consistency. That is the kind of resume that fits a franchise tired of watching playoff football turn into a survival mission for the quarterback. The physical profile matters too. Almost 33.5-inch arms, an 86 out of 99 athleticism grade from Next Gen Stats, third among tackles in the class, and an 81 out of 99 overall grade, the second best mark at the position in that evaluation. And here is the irony. He was only the 6th tackle selected, with Caden Proctor expected to play guard for the Dolphins. So yes, when Elliott Wolf said he actually canceled Lomu's top 30 visit because he thought he would be out of range, I believe it. This is exactly the type of player who, when he slips a few spots, forces the front office to move without apologizing. Short term, the most likely read is that he takes over the swing tackle role from Vidarian Lowe, and that alone already raises the floor of the line. But the bigger bet is on the right side as the long-term successor to Morgan Moses. If Will Campbell gets back to his regular season form and keeps building from there, and if Lomu becomes the long-term answer, the Patriots can finally look at both edges of the line and stop patching holes every time the pressure rises. There is also a layer of versatility you cannot ignore. Mike Reese noted that Wolf mentioned Lomu's ability to work at multiple spots because of how he moves. And with Elijah Vera Tucker carrying a heavy injury history after missing all of last season with a torn triceps and playing only 43 of 85 possible games, New England needs real flexibility. Ben Brown can handle an emergency inside, but the more movable talent you have up front, the less hostage you become to bad luck. The truth is simple and aggressive. After what happened in the playoffs, protecting Drake Maye became a moral obligation for this franchise. If Lomu becomes a star, the Patriots do not just get a tackle. They get stability, strength, room for McDaniels to call the game, and a chance to never let a season die again because the protection fell apart at the worst possible moment. And this is where the defense crashes straight into the conversation, because Jack Campbell landing on New England's speculative radar is not just some random offseason name. The Detroit Lions decided not to pick up his fifth-year option, and that changes the temperature around him. Campbell is still in Detroit. He is still under contract. But when a team leaves a young linebacker in that kind of position, the whole league starts looking at him differently. And the Patriots have to look too, not because New England is completely lost in the middle of the defense. Robert Spillane brings leadership, physicality, communication, and the kind of presence coaches respect. Christian Ellis has shown useful flashes. But let's stop dressing up the roster. The depth is still not at the level of a defense that wants to control the AFC. If Mike Vrabel is building an identity that is physical, nasty against the run, smart with adjustments, and uncomfortable for quarterbacks, then the second level needs more bite. Campbell fits that picture in a way you can feel. He is physical, aggressive, smart, attacks downhill, finishes tackles, can bring pressure on blitzes, closes space, and plays with a posture that fits Vrabel's vision perfectly. He is not the kind of linebacker who waits for the play to politely come to him. He arrives, he hits, he shrinks the field. And for a defense that wants to be feared again, not just respected, that kind of energy is absolute gold. A pairing with Spillane would change the conversation before the ball is even snapped. Spillane would be the veteran organizer, the voice, the guy who controls the emotional temperature of the defense. Campbell would be the young engine, the physical ceiling, the guy who turns a 4-yard run into a warning for the rest of the game. And that matters because the Patriots do not just need names. They need a defensive personality. They need the kind of player who makes opposing offenses think twice before testing the middle. But I am not going to pretend Detroit would give that away cheap if they ever listened to offers. A young, productive linebacker with the ability to become a central piece would cost draft capital. Then comes the extension conversation. That is the kind of move that forces Elliott Wolf to be aggressive without getting reckless. But there is a massive difference between spending out of impulse and investing in identity. Campbell, if the price does not get ridiculous, would be an investment in identity. And now I want the Foxborough read in the comments. Would you pay up for Jack Campbell to transform this defense, or would you save that ammunition for another position? Because to me, if New England wants to intimidate again, you cannot build a defense with only solid pieces and hope fear magically appears. Fear is built with players who crash through the front door of the play. Campbell in that uniform would send a nasty message to the conference. Crossing the middle against the Patriots would start costing again. But a brutal defense does not fix everything if the offense keeps asking Drake Maye to perform miracles on third down. And that is why Cole Kmet needs to be part of this conversation. And seriously, the loudest name, of course, is still A.J. Brown, especially with the whole read that Philadelphia could open the door after June 1. If that happened, it would be a massive swing for New England. But while everybody is staring at the home run, there may be a heavy chain-moving play within reach. Call Chicago and test the price on Kmet. The Bears drafted Colston Loveland last year, and since then, Kmet has been a constant name in trade rumors. Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report put the tight end back on the list of possible trade candidates. And even if the Patriots were not named as an ideal landing spot in that piece, the need in Foxborough is screaming. Hunter Henry is still reliable. He still has chemistry with Maye. He still knows how to find space when a play breaks down. But he is at a point where New England has to think about today and tomorrow at the same time. Kmet is 27 years old. He has experience. He has been a consistent producer since entering the league in 2020. And his profile fits exactly the kind of offense Josh McDaniels loves to use when he wants to torture defenses with two tight ends. He would not need to arrive as some messiah. He would arrive to bring size, security, an intermediate target, red zone presence, and a real mentor for Raritan, who came in the third round, but brings questions about his physical history and NFL adjustment. And this part matters. Raritan can absolutely have a future. Nobody needs to crush the kid before Chapter 1. But putting the entire transition at the position on a rookie with medical questions would be irresponsible. The Patriots are no longer in the business of pretending endless patience is a plan. Drake Maye has already shown he uses the tight end when he needs to breathe, when the read opens in the middle, when the second option becomes the best exit. So why not strengthen the area the quarterback naturally looks for? With Henry and Kmet together, McDaniels could get back to playing with power and space. Heavy formations to force defenses to respect the run. Two tight ends to confuse packages. Kmet attacking the short and intermediate areas. Henry using his experience to find leverage. Raritan learning without being shoved into a role he may not be ready for yet. That is smart, aggressive roster building that helps right now. Chicago would also have a reason to talk if Loveland really is the TE1 of the future. Better to get something for Kmet while he still has value than let a good player lose volume until the situation gets ugly. For New England, the price would not be meaningless, but the return would make sense. More stability for Maye, more variation for McDaniels, more pressure on defenses that can no longer treat this offense like it is predictable. If the Patriots want to surround their quarterback with answers, Kmet is the kind of answer that does not make empty noise. He moves the chains. At the end, the read is aggressive because the situation demands it. Miller puts Jennings under pressure. Lomu could become a long-term wall for Drake Maye. Campbell would be the kind of defender who brings fear back to the middle of the field. Kmet would give the offense more muscle, more security, and more intelligence in heavy formations. That is the difference between building a roster to survive and building one to attack. Foxborough cannot keep asking for endless patience from a fan base that has already watched Maye carry too much weight. So if you want to track every signal in this rebuild without weak narratives, subscribe to the channel and stay right here, because the Patriots still have moves to make.